JCPS series on secondary school multi-tiered systems of support for behavior. The focus of this module is on how school-wide behavior teams at the secondary level prepare for and implement Tier 1 systems for behavior. The work of this team is important, not what the team is called. Some may refer to this team as their MTSS behavior team, some their PBIS team, and some their culture and climate team. But the work is the same. As you'll see here and in coming modules, MTSS teams are responsible for overseeing school-wide implementation. The strategies presented here are part of the school's Tier 1 system for behavior and look specifically at how this process is undertaken in secondary schools. The logic is, teams assist the school in creating positive learning environments and support systems for all. And then they use a universal screener to see who might need additional assistance to be successful. This leads to reteaching and adaptation of supports, which in turn leads to more screening. This process is continuous. It is never complete. But as Tier 1 systems are better aligned to student need, fewer students will be identified as at risk. We'll be discussing the universal screener in the next module. At the secondary level, effective school-wide implementation requires the MTSS team to oversee both the initial implementation of and then adaptations to Tier 1. This includes using data to rethink and reteach key behaviors and the continuous revision of agreed-upon routines and arrangements to better predict student success. All tiers have the same 4 steps: predict, prevent, consistency, and evaluation. At Tier 1, the MTSS team's focus is school-wide, and prediction starts with helping the school to determine when, where, and why student problems occur. At some point, we'll have a data system to help us continuously answer these questions. But as we get started, we can take advantage of people's lived experiences. One simple way the team can begin thinking about prediction is to consider the following set of prompts.
What if we had an observer coming tomorrow, and she only gets to stay here for 5 minutes, but we get to pick what time of day? If she sees misbehavior, then we all get to win $10,000. So where would you have her stand, and what time of day would you pick that?
Of course, this exercise is more comprehensive when conducted with all faculty and staff. But the school-wide behavior team can also use this to bring issues to the faculty for discussion. Another manner of assessing the predictability of misbehavior is the mapping activity. The behavior team lead can go before the full faculty and staff, providing all with 2 sticky dots. The direction is to write the name of the misbehavior on each dot, and the color doesn't matter. But those misbehaviors must be the 2 that each individual has personally seen most often while in a normal daily routine, but should not involve classroom behavior. In addition, all are told to write down any particular time they think they might be associated with the behavior. Next, a map of the school is introduced, and all are instructed to place their dots in the area where they have most often observed it. Realize that in a secondary school, there often are multiple floors and areas, each of which should be represented by a map. While MTSS team members are involved, they are also providing prompts to their peers and helping to facilitate the exercise. This is the information the school needs to move forward in the simplest possible manner. For example, knowing only that problems happen in the hallway is not particularly helpful, and that there is no context for what, when, who, or why. On the other hand, knowing that hallway problems are most likely during passing times, involving clogging the walkway, pushing, and cursing, the team can create a much more precise intervention, saving time and effort while increasing the likelihood of success. One of the great benefits of this activity is that it involves everyone, which is a hallmark of effective MTSS. But the information goes back to the team for further discussion. In addition, in about a half an hour, the team can have agreement about the problems that need to be more proactively addressed. As the behavior lead takes notes, a written summary can be produced. This will be the data to which prevention strategies will be addressed. As we move into prevention, the team's first step is to determine the school's underlying anchor expectations, the behavioral expectations to which all rules will be tied. For example, If the three anchor expectations are respect yourself, respect others, and respect property, they could be defined and taught. Respect yourself can be defined as keeping yourself safe and learning. This covers things like come to class prepared, completing your work, and using equipment safely. Respect others can be defined as treating others the way you'd want to be treated. This covers all peer relations, bullying, and consideration of others. And respect property can be defined as treating others' property and public property in the way you'd want to be treated. This covers things like borrowing, stealing, and vandalism. Note that three big ideas can anchor every rule the team might create. If we were to ask, what should we do in the hallway to be respectful of others? There is a natural engagement about positive behavior, which creates effective instruction. Now the team has two main tasks, the first of which is to help all understand why these school-wide anchor expectations are important for teaching school rules. The team must clarify that connecting all school rules to these anchors provides a context, helping students to understand and remember. The second task is to help teachers understand that these same anchor expectations should be used when introducing classroom rules. While teachers create their own classroom rules, tying them to the same anchors creates a continuity and again helps students to understand and remember the rules. But effective teaching involves more than simply stating the rules, and the team will need to discuss how routines, cues, and physical arrangements can be used to enhance success. Because the school-wide behavior team is representative of the school faculty, their charge is to develop procedures that will be both effective and realistic across the school. One strategy for accomplishing this balance is to have team members brainstorm effective strategies. These might include changing the schedule, making an area off limits to students at certain times, increasing supervision, giving reminders, or even opening or closing a door. Once there is consensus as to whether each strategy is logical in terms of decreasing identified misbehaviors, the next step is to order the strategies from easiest/most practical to hardest/least practical. Watch this team engage in this discussion.
Okay, to sum it all up, we've decided that the hallway is our problematic area. We said that we have crowding, running as a problem, and cursing are most likely things that we're going to be seeing.
Well, I think the rules that we develop seem pretty logical, especially if we teach them in conjunction with our school-wide expectations.
Yeah, and I really like the idea of teaching students appropriate language. I think it ties right back to respect for yourself and others.
Yeah, I think we know, our kids know how to use the appropriate language, but will they use appropriate language in the hallway with their friends?
Yeah, but we talked about some strategies. So we've talked about having all the teachers provide reminders. We've talked about all the teachers stand in the hallway during the transition, and then we also talked about having a sweeper, but I don't remember what that means. Who said that one?
That was mine. I just thought to designate an individual walk in the hallway and sweep and as being out there would be helpful, but I don't know if that'd be helpful, especially with the stairwell.
Yeah, I really don't see how I could do that, be in the hallway throughout a transition, because I have to be able to prepare for my next class.
So let's worry about right now, what's practical. Let's talk about what is practical.
Well, I definitely think it's very logical to be in the hallways while kids are transitioning to kind of help move them along.
Yeah, I think sweeper and us being in the hallways is logical, but I don't know how realistic it is to have it all out there.
But what about reminders?
Well, that sounds really good, but who's going to remind us to give the reminders?
I think it's our job to figure that out.
Okay, I agree, but we also have three more things that we could look into. We could talk about staggering our schedules. We could also talk about silent transitions, and we could also maybe use detention as a consequence for hallway behaviors.
Wait, I don't know if I agree with the logic of detentions. Aren't we trying to prevent problems? This detention seems more like a reactive measure than a proactive one.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really think that's logical.
So what about the scheduling?
Yeah, and changing the schedule is really complicated. I don't know if we're able to do that.
Okay, so make sure I got this right. So we've decided that we're going to agree on reminders and hallway sweepers. Well, what about the silent hallways?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't agree with the silent hallways. These are not elementary kids, and they really need to talk to each other and communicate. And besides, being silent is not going to take care of like pushing and running.
Yeah, I think that we are just setting ourselves up for another battle and one that we can't win.
I agree. I don't think it's worth the battle, but I really would like to put change in the schedule back on the table. I think part of that there could be some logic in doing that.
Okay, but let's try not to do too many things at once. Let's start with the sweepers and let's start with the reminders. And if we find that that's not giving us the solutions that we want, then we can look at doing the scheduling. Well, I felt like the meeting went really well. Sometimes people want to argue or get off point, and disagree. I feel like my job as the team lead is to make sure that I keep everybody on task, everybody focused, and making sure that everybody has an opportunity to have a say, because it's really important for the team to really buy into what we're going to say, because if we don't buy into what we're doing, then how are we going to expect the rest of the faculty and staff to be able to buy into it?
As the team completed this task, the next step would involve determining when to introduce this to the school, allowing for further discussion to recruit collaboration and give all a voice. Once there is school-wide agreement, the focus would turn to the creation of strategies to ensure that all agreed upon practices are actually implemented as intended.
Well, I've been on the team for about 6 years, and I really enjoy it. I'm so excited to be the representative of the math department. And at first, it seemed kind of hard working with my colleagues because they weren't really sure about why we were making the decisions or why they had to do new things or school-wide expectations or any of that stuff. But when I explained to them that we use the data, we make data-based decisions, and we use all of the referrals, and we collect all of the data, then they seem okay with the decisions we come up with.
Clearly, prevention and data tasks are interrelated as one informs the other. As the year goes by, school-wide behavior data is regularly consulted to determine the degree to which Tier 1 strategies are effective. The MTSS behavior team must discuss two things. First, they must evaluate the impact on their goals. Teams typically develop 1 to 3 school-wide behavior goals. Maybe they want to see referrals from the hallway decrease, have fewer incidents of fighting, or see more students remaining in the classroom during instruction. In any case, they pull the data they need to answer these evaluative questions.
At the beginning of the year, we set our goal for a 50% reduction in hallway referrals, and we set our teaching and our support systems around that particular goal. And throughout the year, we thought that we were not meeting that goal at all because the hallways at times were very chaotic. But when we looked at the data, we actually saw that we actually hadn't met our goal, and we even did even better than we thought we were going to do. So I think what we learned is to not go by sight, but to really use the data to inform our decisions.
Second, the team looks broadly across the data to see if there are new trends or abnormalities of which they need to be aware. This involves discussions regarding the types of misbehavior, locations, times, or groups of students that have suddenly become apparent.
Data is super important. Actually, a couple of years ago, we were looking at data for our behavior goals, and we noticed in December that there was a huge increase in referrals for rule violations. But when we dug a little bit deeper, we noticed that the rule violation was connected to snowballs, and what was happening outside with snowballs. And so what we did, we took that data and it helped us, and it taught us that we needed to go back and reteach our students the rules, or teach those students the rules about snowballs to the entire school. And so from here on out, looking forward, we're going to use that data to help us and know that we need to teach students about snowballs and the rules around those before and after school.
Let's hear the team talking through their data and making some decisions regarding adaptations to their Tier 1 plans.
Okay, so now that we've been looking at the data, we've done all our, after the things that we decided to do in the hallway, we figured out that, looking at the data, that the mornings are still great, the afternoons are still great, but we're still really struggling at lunchtime. So what do you think that we can do, guys?
Well, I noticed that when we do our sweeps in the morning and the afternoon, we have people stationed at certain areas and they have a specific job. But based on the data at lunch, we don't have anybody stationed in specific areas. So it's kind of like it's almost like the teachers don't know who's supposed to do what when at lunchtime.
That's a great point.
Well, even then, I've noticed that, like admin has to be in the cafeteria, so there's less adult and supervision in the hallway because admin and security are in other places at that time.
So, based on what you were saying, should we go back and maybe talk to some people and assign roles on what they're supposed to be doing?
I think it gets tricky with the planning periods and with lunch breaks because the kids are always coming and going and we don't have the bell set for every lunch wave and everything. So I don't know if you want to look at maybe doing the bells, or I'm not sure what you guys think.
Well, if we're gonna be assigning people, we definitely need to look at the schedules a little deeper, making sure, seeing who would possibly be available.
Yeah, we have a lot of extra support staff in the school, so I think that's a great idea to kind of pinpoint who's available and who's not during the lunch rotations.
Should we assign someone who's responsible for doing that?
Sure. Who would like to be in charge of that?
I can take on that role.
Okay, great.
I was looking at some of the data too on our referrals. We're also having a problem with the bathrooms at lunch. Can we do something about that?
Sure, maybe that we can have whoever is in charge, that can be like a dual responsibility at that time, possibly, if that would work. I'm just not sure.
Do you have any ideas on what to do with the bathrooms? Like keep
Well, I
them
didn't
locked
know.
or?
Yeah, that's what, I didn't know if we were gonna keep them locked or unlocked during lunch and let kids leave the cafeteria to go to the restroom, or was that a no?
Well, again, if you're having
Or-
kids going, you're gonna have somebody in that area of the hallway to monitor them, because we can't have them out there without anybody monitoring, so.
And somebody's gonna have to unlock the doors when they need to go and,
True, but would it be beneficial to do escort only during that time?
I don't know.
Maybe cut down on the number of students out in the hallways?
I mean, we're not tied to, let's look at the schedule too, who we have, who'd be available, so maybe we could look at, once we look at the schedule, and we kind of revisit that as well.
Definitely.
Well, I know that we've got some vaping problems too in the bathrooms, so are we gonna have the bathrooms open all day and then think about lunch? Or are they gonna only be open during class changes? Or, because if they're only open during class changes, then you feel like, well, you've gotta let the kids go during lunch. But if you have them open all day, then maybe you don't have to let them go during lunch, like.
Well, again, that's, something we need to talk to the teachers about, because seeing if they feel comfortable with letting them, leave during class. But again, we're just gonna have to look at, what the data's showing us.
has anybody researched anything? Because I'm thinking about what you said with the vaping. Is there any research out there that shows maybe some successful tips on how to address that?
Well, I know that some of the other schools, they're keeping their bathrooms locked during class periods, and they're assigning teachers, like when they're doing their sweep, they have specific teachers that come out and lock and unlock the restrooms, and like that's their duty. And so the kids can go in between classes and they can go during lunch, but when they have supervision during lunch, one of those people is responsible for the restroom.
I like
Okay.
that idea.
That's a great idea.
The step we've not yet addressed is consistency. The degree to which we, as a school, are doing the things we said we'd do. The question the team might ask itself is, are we really doing MTSS for behavior, or are we going through the planning without ever really changing our own behavior with students? Clearly, if there's been no meaningful change in the way we do business, we would not expect there to be any change in student behavior. The team is responsible for evaluating fidelity across tiers. At Tier 1, many of the questions asked will be reflective for the team. Did we develop a set of expected behaviors? Were plans made to teach those behaviors to students? Do we look at data to make decisions? And do we have screening procedures in place? Other questions will be more evaluative of the school as a whole, with questions about how well the school has implemented the plans. Do students report receiving positive feedback from adults? Are expectations posted in all areas of the school? And do all adults collect and submit data on behavior? In JCPS, the Tiered Fidelity Inventory, or TFI, is used to assess fidelity of MTSS for behavior. Teams complete the TFI in collaboration with their district MTSS behavior resource teacher, discussing the items and results. In addition, those resource teachers work with teams to consider their self-assessment survey, or SAS data. Watch as this team talks through their fidelity data.
Okay, so we're all looking at the subscale page. If you notice, the implementation average is only 74%, and our goal was to be 80%. So let's try to take a look at all the different categories and see where we can tweak and make some improvements.
Well, you have a couple categories. You have reward system down at 65%. You have management at 66%. So maybe we could talk about those too.
Yeah, I think rewards would definitely be an easy place to get the biggest bang for our buck, honestly.
I think so too.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at all the other areas, we're above, that mark that we want to be at or close to it. So I think we start with reward system and see how we improve.
Okay, so we need to start school-wide. We need to try to come up with some different good rewards for our school-wide system. So what are you guys thinking?
Well, I think it would be a great idea to kind of survey the students to see some things that they would like to have as rewards.
Oh,
I
that's a
think we
great
definitely need
idea.
to tie it to our school-wide expectations.
Oh,
Make it
absolutely. So what are some things we could do?
So maybe we create a Google form to have our students fill out, and that way we can collect the data from the Google form and see what some of the top rewards that they would like to see.
So like thinking like an interest inventory type situation?
Right, so are we gonna have like a list of things for them to choose from, or are we just gonna let them give us some suggestions?
Well, maybe we could have a list of things to choose from and then put other at the bottom.
Because remember, we want to try to figure out ways to do this where we spend, the least amount of money, because our budget's not the greatest.
Well, if we do that though, then we can offer suggestions and then we can also take some of their suggestions.
True. Anybody else have any other recommendations? Maybe some suggestions what can go on the Google form?
I think the staff should be involved in this for sure too, and get their input.
Okay, so maybe at the next faculty meeting, that could be something that we'll talk about. And then who's going to be in charge of taking notes and putting together the Google form at the next meeting?
I can do that.
Great, that'd be lovely.
I think when we look at the reward system, when we think about the kids, we need to be sure to think about the adults as well. Have a reward system for staff.
Oh, good idea.
Great.
To summarize, Tier 1 is where most school-wide behavior teams spend most of their time. Once students are identified through screeners or other data, further assessment and intervention are typically provided by secondary behavior teams.